Hi, my name is Bernard. Yesterday I was at the gym and I was extremely surprised that having gone to the gym maybe once or twice a week for the last few months this year, I was able to bench press 365 pounds still. Now, I did this knowing that if 2006 Bernard were to see into 2016 Bernard, he would be extremely disappointed. And reason being is that I first hit my 300-pound bench press in 2006. Back then, I was making huge progress all the time. Everything that I did, my daily rituals, everything had to deal with powerlifting. So the reason being is that I saw myself as a competitive powerlifter. I saw myself as the person who would day in and day out put in the work that would be required so that the next day I would be able to lift more than I was the previous. And in my mind, I was always getting better, and at the time I was. But now going forward 10 years and seeing myself in exactly the same place as I was back then, surprisingly, me today, I'm not so disappointed at still having a 365-pound bench press. In fact, I'm actually really surprised that I'm still able to do it. I think that's really cool. And honestly, I'm just happy that I have two arms that function right now. And that's really what I want to talk about today, is that your own vision of yourself dictates who you become. And I know that some people might think, oh, that sounds really cheesy. But think about this. Back in 2006, my vision of myself was that of a competitive powerlifter. Everything that I did every single day had to do with powerlifting. There were things that I did at night, such as preparing my meals for the next day, putting all of the protein powder in the right bags, packing everything into a cooler, putting my shoes next to my bed so that I could be able to spring out, throw them on, and go directly to the gym to do my early morning cardio. I had my calendar planned out for all of my squatting sessions, all of my training sessions. It was all there. And to me, these were the things that I needed to do to get better every single day. Now, if we think about the notion of self, a lot of times we'll do the opposite. A lot of people will say, well, I'm not good enough to do that. One thing that I saw really common when I was a lot younger was a lot of people said, I'm not good enough to go to college. I'm not good enough to be studying. I'm not good enough to be a doctor. I'm not good enough to be an engineer. So instead, they'd be on their skateboard around the 7-Eleven and drink a slushie, mess around with some condoms behind the river, and do pretty much a bunch of nothing with their time. And you know what? Those people never became a doctor, but their notion of self is that they're never good enough to do things. So the things that they do every single day don't ever help them. And that's the problem with a lot of people who are finding a lack of success in their life, is that they have these self-imposed limitations on themselves. They see themselves a certain way, and they refuse to go and take the action to do what they need to and make it in life. But interestingly enough, your concept of yourself changes over time, just like mine did. In 2006, I saw myself as a competitive powerlifter who would train day in and day out and who would do all the necessary things over a long period of time to lift as much as he could every single day. In 2016, I don't quite see myself the same way, and I know when it changed. So for me, it changed in my senior year of college. In senior year of college, I got ran over by a car. I got ran over twice that year. First was on my 21st birthday, and then again when senior year started. It was maybe like the second day of the semester. And when I got hit by a car, I had qualified for nationals at a competition, but I wasn't then able to compete because I just got hit by a car. I tore ligaments in my knee. And it kind of shattered my self-image because I thought of myself as invincible. I thought of myself as one of the strongest people who could get through anything, right? I lost 60 pounds in 16 weeks. I did something that most people can't do. And at the time, I was a straight A student in one of the hardest disciplines in engineering, chemical engineering. So to me, I thought, well, I put in all the time and effort to get things done. I'm going to be successful in all of these for the rest of my life. And that's completely wrong. Because then for the 16 weeks that came after the car accident, I wasn't able to train. I came back and it was miserable. But see, now winter break of that year, after the accident had subsided and I had recovered, my parents sat down with me and said, so Bernard, you're graduating college this year. When your sister graduated college 8 years ago, she found a job. So when you graduate college in May, you're going to find a job. And I remember saying to them, but Mom and Dad, I'm going to study to be a doctor. My sister didn't go study to be a doctor. How could you do this to me? And they said, well, you have a degree in engineering. You're going to get licensed. You could find a job. And going to study to be a doctor is your choice, not ours. So make sure you go and find that job. And at the time, I didn't think that they were serious. So it wasn't until spring break of my senior year of college. I was about to go home. It was the first Saturday of the week. And I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm coming home." And he said, "Okay, great. Did you find a job yet?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "Oh, well, don't come home till you do." And he hung up on me. And I remember it was at that moment that I kind of sat there in awe. And I told my roommate about this. I said, "Hey, this is crazy. Like, I can't even go home now. Like, they're for real that I need to find a job." So for me, because I was going to go on to more school after I graduated college, I went out and I went to 5 different places: hospitals, pharmacies, clinics, and I did everything that I could to find a job. And that was one of the rituals that I was saying, because it was at that moment that my vision of myself changed. I was no longer a college student. I was no longer that guy who was obsessed with powerlifting. I was that student, that person studying to be a doctor who needs to be able to work and support himself throughout the schooling. It'd be another 4 long years that I'd have to do. And the ritual then at the time was that I would have to go and find this job. So I went to 5 different places a day, and I came out not with 1 job, not with 2 jobs, but with 3 jobs. And throughout my first year of school, I worked anywhere between 65 to 80 hours a week. I was a straight A student in engineering, but when I was studying to be a doctor, literally, I got C's and almost D's because I was working all the time. I was able to pay my rent. I was able to pay the entire tuition of that schooling. And now, because my vision of myself changed, I was no longer that person competing in powerlifting. That was around the time that I started going to the gym a lot less, because to me, I wasn't able to fulfill the rituals. I wasn't able to go and pack my lunch every single day. I wasn't able to go and wake up really early in the day with my shoes right next to my bed so that I could do an hour's worth of cardio before going to work and then going back to the gym again later that day. Not when I was working 3 jobs, I couldn't. But while that one part of myself, the powerlifting self, started to decline, I noticed that my financial situation became a lot better. I noticed that my experience in dealing with patients became a lot better. And I noticed that my vision of myself as Dr. Bernard was much more realized than it was in my senior year of college. Now, fast forward a few years, I finish school and I start my postgraduate training. And to me, I had always seen myself as Dr. Bernard, so I did everything that I could in order to fulfill that role. Whether it was putting in extra hours at the hospital, or reading more on medical literature, or going to conventions and events that sometimes I didn't like the people who were there. But all of these things would contribute to me being able to better understand medicine, better understand patient interaction, and better store my confidence as a person, so that I could show that I'm really in control of all of my facilities. And what this all led to is this saying that a lot of people told me when I was a lot younger, is that people are praised in public for what they practice for years in private. Now, I want to admit, I'm a nobody on the internet. I have a very small YouTube channel, but I am somebody in my career. That's actually the beauty of being on YouTube, is that I haven't even been here for a year as of this recording, and there's so many things that go on behind the scenes that I practice privately. Now, will I be praised in public later? Maybe. I do feel like I'm getting praised now in public, having more subscribers than I ever thought I would get. But the same principle applied to Dr. Bernard, who spent thousands upon thousands of hours practicing to become the person who he thought he was and is now. So this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about in today's video, because I know a lot of you who I've interacted with, and trust me, I try to interact with almost everybody who takes the time to leave a comment. So long as it's nice, if you're nice, I'm nice. But I do see a lot of people who would be closer to my age who are struggling. Now, if you're younger, your priorities are a little different. Maybe you're in school and you might want to try to be the best you can be in school, or the sport you play, or some hobby that you do. I always try to suggest to younger kids to take on extra projects that you think would be interesting, whether or not it's inverting colors on sprites in games, or creating 3D models or modding a game, I would always want to encourage kids to go ahead and do that. Because when you're younger, you don't really have an identity of yourself just yet. Honestly, there's people in their 30s who still don't have an identity of self. So don't feel bad if you're in that category. But doing these things will improve your exposure to other things and will help you eventually find the self that truly belongs to you. So to those people who are struggling right now, there's a thing that I want you to do, and this is if you want to do it, is that you need to write down on a piece of paper who you think you are. And you need to be honest, because there's a lot of people who would try to sugarcoat it. But if you know that you're struggling and you know that there's something wrong in your life, most of the time people know what's going on in their life and they know what the problems are. A lot of times they just don't want to admit it. So people might make a joke saying that admitting it is the first step. It is actually the first step. And when you admit that you have a problem in whatever and that that's holding you back, you need to write down who you think you are. And second of all, after that, you need to write down what you need to do in order to get to that place. But it can't just be anything. It needs to be the things that you know are going to work for you. Because what works for me doesn't work for everybody else. I always loved it when people would go into bodybuilding magazines and say, oh, look at the workout that this bodybuilder does. And then they try it and they get 0 results. And that's because a lot of the things that other people do might not always work for you. But you have to try. And sometimes you do waste a lot of time trying different things in order to find out what works for you. But once you find what works for you, make sure that you stay consistent with it. Just like I had mentioned in my life lessons videos, all in the description below. So the last thing I want to leave to people who are thinking that they might not be enjoying the success that they deserve is that there's 2 things. There's the pain of discipline of having to go through these rituals every single day, doing the things that are necessary to get you to where you want to be. But there's also the pain of a regret of not doing it. Because let's be honest, I don't have any more time in the day than you do. Nobody has more time than any of us do. And it's really what you want to do with that time and whether or not you want to place barriers to yourself on who you should become. And as of today, I see myself as Dr. Bernard, who is a hobbyist drone flyer, hobbyist photographer, hobbyist YouTuber, hobbyist 3D printer. And eventually I want to bring all of these things together with what I do on a daily basis, every day at work, helping patients out with their problems. Now, sometimes people might get fooled with some of the videos that I have on video games and some of the things that I say in those videos. To me, these things are for fun. These things are about as fun as the games that I am playing. And these things are for entertainment purposes, but the outcome of it is that I learn to make better videos every single time. Now, I know every single video is not going to be better than the last every time, but there's a part of the journey and there's a part of the ritual that I do every day when it comes to making videos that'll help build my habits in terms of making potentially more important videos later, such as this one. But anyways, with that being said, I hope I have maybe motivated you to change your notion of self and to change your daily activities to be able to fit that notion. And if I did, please leave a like on this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope I motivated you. Leave me a comment, and I don't want to see comments to say that you're not good enough to do something, that you're not ever able to do something. Those are all going to lead to the pain of regret in your life, and it's never going to go away for as long as you live. But subscribe if you'd like to see more. This is a weekend video, Weekends with Bernie, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Adios, amigos.